Hey guys, if you've ever tried to manage your Google Ads accounts using GA4 and Google Ads, it can be a little confusing, right? Like some data's in Google Ads, some's in GA4. The reporting and charts in GA4 just are underwhelming. So let's take a look at how we can set this up in Looker Studio to make managing your Google Ads a little easier. All right, so let's take a look at the data in GA4 so you can understand what we're looking at. So if you are familiar with GA4, they have moved some of the Google Ads stuff to the advertising tab. Before you would have to import it into the reports tab under the acquisition reports, but now you can find the Google Ads interface under advertising. There is still one under reports. If you go to acquisition overview, you can go to the Google Ads sessions by Google Ads to view the campaigns. The problem with this is that it doesn't show cost. So it'll show revenue, but not necessarily cost. Whereas under the Google advertising section, the GA4 advertising section, you can go to Google Ads. And then now this has ad cost. So you have to go to advertising, the Google Ads under planning, and then you can see your ad costs and other related metrics like return on ad spend, ROAS, the ad clicks, and some of the data that would be typically in your Google Ads account. So now you're only going to see this if you have linked the accounts in your admin. So make sure you do that. It's just under the product linking. This is the Google Ads account or the Google sample account. So I'm not going to have the ability to actually link anything, but you can see, go to the links and you can see Google Ad links. They've linked their various accounts in here. That pulls that data into GA4. You can also pull GA4 data into Google Ads if it's linked on that end as well. But again, what we're trying to avoid is having to go between these two tools to see the various metrics that you want. So the metrics that are in GA4 are relatively high level and limited, okay, compared to Google Ads. So let's bop over to Looker Studio and talk about how to do this report. So if you go into Looker Studio, if you're not familiar with it, you click on the blank report. And it's going to ask you to choose your data source. And so in this case, we can choose out of the gate, we can choose Google Analytics or Google Ads. You can adjust that once you're into the dashboard, so we won't go through that process. I've already set this up over here where I have the data sources selected that I'm going to need. Okay. The initial thing that we're going to do is look at kind of the overall metrics that you'd be interested in seeing. So kind of like an executive dashboard, the high level stuff that you're going to want to look at on a weekly or monthly basis that talks about how well your program is doing. So let's start out with things like traffic. And since we are specifically interested in Google Ads, we're going to look at the ads as well as do a filter for the ads. So clicks is actually a good place to start. I'm going to just stylize this a little bit. Let's change that font. Just bump it up so we can make it a little bit easier to read. There we go. All right, so this is clicks. Now you can get very fancy with this and add boxes and add borders and drop shadows and that kind of stuff. Why don't we go ahead and not do that right now just for the sake of brevity. But you can obviously improve the look of these by doing that. So we're going to start out with clicks. And we're just going to duplicate this. Let's make this the section for Google Ads and this for GA4. So now we're going to go to this and change the data source. So we're going to go to GA4 and we're going to want users. So let's do total users. Now in GA4, when you go to your default traffic reports, if you go to the traffic acquisition reports and you choose users, it's actually showing you active users, not total users. So There is total users here. So total users is people that came to the site and bounced or engaged in your site. Active users are users that came to your site and did something. They scrolled, they clicked, they engaged with your site. So that's active users. To be consistent so that your numbers in Looker Studio just aren't off from what the default reporting is in GA4, we're going to go with active users for this. We're going to also look for a filter. So we're going to add a filter here, and we're going to call it Google Ads. Okay, and it includes source medium, session source medium, Google CPC. All right, so now that is looking specifically for Google Ads paid search users, so Google CPC. This is not going to show Bing, it's not going to show anything. If you did want to do just paid search in general, you could do that, or paid programs, you could do that. Typically it's CPC or something like that in the in your source medium UTMs. Google Ads, if you have integrated the Google Ads and Google Analytics, it's going to tag your Google Ads for you automatically, putting in the UTM that allows GA4 to track your marketing programs. That's going to be, by default, it's going to be CPC, cost per click. So active users, now we're going to duplicate that because it's got the filter on it, and we're going to put other interesting metrics like sessions. Okay. And let's do purchases. So e-commerce purchases. Now you could do e-commerce purchases, total purchases. It depends on how you have it set up, but total purchases should be fine. Oh, that's purchasers. Let's do purchase revenue. All right, and to make that a little cleaner, we're just going to use compact numbers. Expand that a little bit. Okay. So this is overall starting to take shape. So let's do things like transactions. And again, because we have the filter on this and because I'm copying it, this is just going to be the transactions from paid search, from Google Ads specifically. Okay. And we can line these up a little bit better later, but just so you have the idea. Let's do conversion rate. In this situation, we can actually do a calculated metric. So calculated value. We're just going to call it conversion rate. And it's going to be a %. And so it's going to be transactions. And we'll do session conversion rate. Sessions. All right, so they actually have a really good conversion rate for that program. And then let's see if they have average order, average purchase revenue. So that's average order revenue. Just to save the size on that, we're going to call it AOV. Now, changing the name of this in the report doesn't change the metric at all. It just changes how it shows up on this card. All right, so these are some of the basic overall metrics that are coming from GA4, right? So we know we want to see things like how many users are coming, the sessions, conversion rate, transactions, average order value. Now let's talk about some of the basic metrics we'll want to see from Google Ads. And now, because I copied that, this is leaving it as Google Ads. So we have clicks. We're going to want cost. Okay, let's make that compact. Clicks. We're going to want average cost per click. Okay. We're probably going to want impressions. If I could spell correctly. Impressions. We're going to want click-through rate, and so many people are clicking through from the ads. I like to add little charts to this so they can see the interesting information very quickly. So one of the top ones here is going to be revenue, so that they can just see a quick trend line. So we're going to make this the GA4 data. Let's make it by day since we're looking at a fixed period of time. And we're going to look at revenue purchases. And we can do a comparison. Let's do previous period. Now, I often like to do, if we're doing a comparison, to do the over the last year compared to the prior year. But it really depends on what you're looking at. So, last year will tell you a lot of the stuff that is going to impact your programs, like on a calendar basis. So where there are holidays, where that kind of stuff. So that's going to be more like apples to apples. But if you're making major changes from month to month, you're going to want to kind of see, like, did those have immediate impact? So it's really up to you how you do that. Before we dive into that, let's add a control up here that's helpful. That is the date range control. So that will set this dashboard to the date that we select up here. So let me style this. I'm going to make it white. And then we're going to set the default to this to say last month. Okay, so that way they get a full month. Okay. And you can style this more, make that more attractive, make it a little bit, stand out a little bit more. So this is automatically now going to change the data on this report, on this specific dashboard, to last month. And now we can make this a little bit more easily. It's custom, and we're going to do last comparison date range, previous period. All right, so that'll give you a quick look at that. We're going to do the same over here. And instead of revenue for this one, we're going to do the Google Ads data, and we're going to do cost. So they can see cost trends, previous period. Okay, so now you have some quick charts in there that they can look at to examine what's going on just from a trend basis. Again, these are not meant to be super detailed, but just give you an idea of what's going on. Okay. So now, from a high level, what we always get questions for is certain keywords in campaigns. So we're going to put that here. Okay. And let's do keywords. So we're going to keep this as Google Ads. Do keyword. And then cost, clicks, and then we're going to do a comparison. Let's do previous period again, since it's what we did above. All right, and that shows that. So we're just going to stretch this out a little bit. Make this a little bit more readable. Okay. So now we've got that basic info. Let's copy that. And again, you can format these more. You can get rid of the numbers in the front. You can alternate the shading on the rows. It's all in the styling up here. In this one, let's look at the campaigns. Google Ads, so not by keyword, but rather campaign, and same data, right? So we're going to look at cost per click, or the cost, overall cost, the change from the previous period, clicks, that type of thing. Okay, so this is a good start to just give you like the basic overall information that executives potentially are going to want, right? But from a management perspective, from looking at a little bit more of the details, we're going to want to look at some trends that are going to impact the overall performance of your campaign. So this is all good, but it is not yet complete. So let's look at this page. I'm going to add, we have this page right here. I'm actually going to copy this, duplicate it. We're going to call this overview. And if you can hear one of my cats. Hi, Cody. Wanting some attention. And we're going to go to this page. Now I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff. And instead, we're going to look at some a little bit different metrics. So get rid of some of these. Now, one of the things you can do on a more in-depth page is actually expand some of these. So you could have, for instance, a lot more keyword data and a lot more campaign data, depending on how many campaigns you have. You could also just say, let's look at not only the campaign data, but the actual ad groups data. So let's do that here. All right, and so now you have the ad groups that you can look in there and see how the cost is trending, how the clicks are trending, and that kind of stuff. You can also view your top keywords. You can sort these in this too, so that a user can sort it. Okay, so now we've created these charts, but what's missing is purchase revenue, right? And so what we can do is, instead of using the Google Ads for this, if you just want to see the Google Ads data, you can add other metrics in here that may not be available in GA4. But let's instead change this over to GA4. And we're going to look for keyword, session Google Ads keyword, and we're going to want revenue, purchase revenue. Okay. And so now we see that change over time. We have the revenue, we have the ad costs. Let's select a date range. Now you can choose to make this card for the entire report level, right? Sometimes you may not want to do that, and you'll see that in a minute, just because you may want to have certain reports that are not controlled by this dropdown, but are that report specific. So you may want to do like a 12-month report or something like that, and it just becomes a little hinky to do that. But it is definitely easy to make this report level. So now we have this in, and if you notice, if we go to make this using GA4 data, if we go to make it Google Ads campaign, and then if we want to put cost data or revenue data in here, so let's look at purchase revenue. Okay, we have that. Let's look at cost. Okay, that comes through, and we have the changes. You can do the same thing for the ad group, but you would just have to make it, oh, I have to change that first. There we go. Make this Google Ads group name. And you have to change these metrics to the GA4 metrics, cost, revenue, and okay. So now we have that. And like I said, to make these a little bit easier to view, what you can do is alternate the rows and table colors, change those. You can also do some conditional formatting on these, where if it's certain, it'll show colors for certain conditions and that type of thing, but we're not going to get in that today. Okay, and you can see in large tables, just alternating those rows of colors makes it a little bit easier to read. Okay, all right, so let's do one more, some more types of charts that are important to use so that you can get better visualization of what's happening with your campaign. Okay, we'll duplicate that. All right, we're going to get rid of these. Let's do some charts that show some trends that are important. Actually, I'm going to change this chart type. No, that's fine actually. All right, so let's show Google Ads. Okay, we're gonna show clicks. Actually, we're gonna set the dimension to be month. Clicks. And then cost. And we're gonna expand this to let's just say this year to date. All right. And so this is showing us clicks compared to cost. And as you can see in this particular chart, for this sample client, the clicks were much higher. The cost was much higher. But then the clicks went down over time. They were making changes to the account. The clicks went down over time, and yet the costs remain very high. That's not a trend that you want to see. You obviously don't want your clicks going down while the costs remain high. So that's something that they should be taking a look at, okay? Something similar, let's take a look at another chart that'll give you a quick glance to see what the health of your program. So obviously, another one could be impressions. And again, if I could spell. So how your ads are getting viewed. But let's also look at impressions that are in the top percentage. Okay. Let's make sure that this is sorted by date. So this is sorted by month. So in this one, you can see something similar. You're seeing a lot of impressions that were in the top at one point. And then that varies. So that's something that you want to keep an eye on, is why you may or may not be in that top percentage of overall impressions. So here we're getting a decent number of impressions, but they're not in the top. So it's just another way to look at kind of what is set up on the site and how that is changing. Now, I know for this account, this is because they're focusing on a lot of well-known brand terms, and so those are, while it looks good, they're probably spending money there where they shouldn't be. All right, now another one that we're going to want to look at typically is cost. And cost per click. All right, and make sure that that is ordered by month. All right, and so what you're going to see in this situation, in this type of chart, is you can see that historically the the cost was higher. They had a larger budget, but the cost per click was extremely low, right? It was below $1. And so at some point that changed. They made some changes to the account and the costs were lowered. They cut their budget, but the cost per click went up. And you see that trend where the cost per click is growing pretty significantly across this account. So if we were to remove cost, you can see how their cost per click is going up really high. And I don't know if that's just how they've structured the site, or if it's or the structure of the campaign, or if it's just some poor management that they're not paying attention to quality scores, they're not paying attention to that kind of thing. So that's something obviously that they would want to keep an eye on, is anytime you have that cost per click increasing, you're going to want to understand why. Why is the cost per click going up and yet overall traffic is going down? Or is, the overall cost is also going up. All right, and so let's do another comparison chart that'll just give you a quick view. So we're going to do cost per click, and we're going to do clicks. Okay, and so here again, you can see their clicks are actively going down while their cost per clicks are going up. So it's costing them more on their budget to acquire the clicks, and thus their clicks are going down. So they've done something to the account that is causing that kind of change where you'd want to see the opposite of that. You'd want to see your average cost per click going down and clicks going up is the ideal situation. So again, this will give you a quick barometer of how the health of the account is going. You can, view an overall, you can get a quick snapshot of, how things are happening, what changes you're making are, what that's impacting over time, and whether it's useful or not. So again, these are just quick and easy charts that you can use. Obviously you'd want to do more cleanup and that kind of stuff. You may also want to implement some of the annotations, and we showed that in a recent video. I'll put the link to that below in the description. But that way you can add annotations to this from a Google Sheet that lets you know what happened during a period of time. So when you're looking at a chart like this, and you're wondering, like, what was the change between January and February? Why did things drop off significantly? What was changed? And you can have your team and or your agencies keep track of those changes, whether it's budgetary changes, whether they change things like match types in the campaign, or they're using Performance Max as one of the driving campaigns, or they're doing more display. Whatever that is, you can annotate that, and then during that date range that you've selected, you can see the notes in there to understand what changes happened. So I'll put a link to that. That's pretty easy to implement into all of your reports, and you can even make it channel specific. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. If there's other data that you're not quite sure how to view in Looker or in GA4 that relates to Google Ads, let me know. We can do a video about that as well. Again, this is not exhaustive. We have dashboards for clients that are much more involved than this, that are many pages that allow them to really analyze their programs easily and also share it with executives and stuff. So we'll expand on this in the future as well. This is definitely by no means the be-all end-all of reports. This is just some of the top stuff you might want to look at in a Google Ads report. So if you need help with your Google Ads and your Google Ads performance, reach out to us. I'll put a link below in the description to a free consultation with us for 30 minutes that we can talk about your programs and see if maybe we can help you with your paid search programs, with your analytics, with your dashboarding, whatever it might be, we can help you with that. So keep that in mind. If there's topics you'd like to see or questions you have, drop them below or email us directly. We're always happy to answer those questions for you. And if you want other topics, we're always looking for ideas about that too. So let us know. Have a good day, guys, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.